Welcome to No Nonsense Nonprofits. Hi, I'm Sandy Ray, founder of Sandra E. Ray CPA, where we alleviate financial headaches so that you can create a bigger impact. Today, we're going to talk about the common risks of nonprofit mergers and acquisitions. We've been talking about mergers and acquisitions and how they can benefit your organization, and we've been talking about doing your due diligence and how important it is. Today, we're really focusing on that due diligence and the things that we need to be looking at. Now, we love to think that our programs are comprehensive, and maybe your programs really truly are, but we can't be everything to everyone. And collaboration many times is the answer to serving our communities better than we are doing today. But the next step beyond collaboration is like a merger or an acquisition where two entities become one. Either the two entities disappear and there's a new entity, or one entity is absorbed by the other. In order to make this successful, we really have to understand the risks and plan and look into things and make sure that we have everything buttoned down as much as we possibly can before we actually do this merger or acquisition. So I've broken down these risks into groups. And the first group, of course, I'm an accountant, the financial risks. Now, obviously, both organizations are going to have debts and liabilities and obligations. So we have to look at those documents and those contracts, look at what's expected, and how will the merger or the acquisition affect that. Many times the new entity is going to be absorbing those liabilities, and we're going to have to be paying for it. But those are the things that we know about. We also need to be looking for hidden liabilities. Is there a risk of a future lawsuit? Do we need to be talking with the attorneys? Lawsuits can arise from past acts sometime down the road after this merger is together, or maybe someone has discovered that the new entity has more assets and they're going to bring forth their lawsuit. So that's the kind of potential loss we need to be looking at. Also, a financial risk: how much is this merger going to cost us? We have costs associated with the due diligence, the pre-merger type of costs, and then post-merger. Are we moving buildings? Are we bringing on new employees? How is that going to work? We want to address our cash flow issues post-merger. Is there going to be an interruption in our cash income that's going to affect our ability to pay our obligations, to make payroll, those kinds of things? And then finally, we want to look at the internal controls of both entities. Are they along the same lines? Is one have stronger internal controls than the other? And if so, how can the organization with the weaker internal controls maybe result in a financial loss of some sort? So that's the financial risks. The next one I want to talk about is cultural risks. We're talking about values and how the values of the two entities may be different. We're talking about things like with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're also talking about things like sharing of power and leadership styles among the management team and the board of directors. And then we're talking about things as easy as workplace customs, communication styles, something as easy as, okay, how's the dress code for the office going to change? Is one entity very formal and the other very casual? How are we going to make that work together? So those are some cultural risks that we have to take on internally. Now, externally, how is the culture of the new entity going to affect how clients, our beneficiaries, our constituents, and other people are treated or perceived to be treated? So that's another big issue in the cultural area that we need to address. And we need to take steps to make sure that clients and constituents perceive that they're being treated as well or better than they were before. Then we've got some programmatic risks. So we're talking about the changes in our programs, maybe the termination of a certain program. Are we going to combine programs? Are we adding new programs? How is that going to happen? But more importantly, what's the underlying beliefs that support how we do things? I think if you can address the underlying beliefs about what is important programs to be operating and how they serve our constituency, that if we can address those issues, then I think the answer to what programs stay, what programs get merged, or what programs are terminated is much easier to address. Then we have leadership risks, and we talked a little bit about this in cultural risks, but we're going to have people on our directors and in our management team that are going to be moving around, taking on new responsibilities, taking on something totally different, or maybe they're staying the same, they just have more of the same, or maybe they won't be part of the new entity at all. So we have to address how that is going to happen. We want to make sure that we keep our extremely valuable people. Maybe there's only a certain number of board seats for the new entity. We want to make sure that those board members who bring the greatest value to the board get on the board of the new entity. And we may just lose somebody, even if they're extremely valuable, because they're opposed to the merger. And that's going to happen. And how are we going to bring back those skills that person left with? After that, we're talking about employment risks. The same with employees and independent contractors. There are going to be new responsibilities. There's going to be new people to work with. There's going to be some people that leave. Are there going to be employment claims by a disgruntled and terminated employee, either as a result of the merger or as something that happened prior to the merger? Again, is there any unknown employee claims? It's hard to say what's unknown, but you can identify potential for the risk of unknown claims. Is there going to be a reduction in productivity due to lack of knowledge? Are we going to need to do some retraining? Is there going to be a reduction in job satisfaction that results in loss of retention of employees that we want to keep? How are we going to recruit for new positions? And then finally, has either entity classified people that should be employees as independent contractors? And how is that going to affect the new entity? Are we going to make them employees? And then what is going to happen as a result of that misclassification? What's the risk that the IRS is going to come back and force us to pay that penalty for the employment taxes, the federal withholding, and the FICA? The next area I want to talk about is marketing and goodwill. As there's going to be people that object to this merger or this acquisition, and it could result in bad publicity for our organization. How are we going to mitigate that? Generally, communication is key. But along with that, the branding of the two entities and the new entity. Does one entity have really strong branding? Do both entities have really strong branding? Is that branding going to get diluted when we merge the two entities together? Or is one entity going to be lost or diminished completely? We need to think about that branding of the new entity and the publicity around that. And again, that has to do with lots of communication. Fundraising risks. And donors are an integral part of our organizations, whether it's individual donors, corporate donors, grants. We all get our money, a lot of money, in addition to program services from donations and contributions. Are we going to lose any donors? Do we have donors for both entities that are going to assume the new entity doesn't need the same level of support as both entities, so they reduce their donation to the new entity? Are we going to lose donors because they're not happy about the merger? And just the publicity and how that's going to affect everything. One thing we don't talk about a lot is planned giving. What's going to happen with those bequests and trusts and those kinds of things? Are we aware of them? Again, this is a communication issue. Do we go to the donors and say, hey, we're doing this and thank you for making us a beneficiary, but we need to change the name now, or we have a new tax ID number, whatever it is that you need to do there. And then, of course, grant compliance issues. Will the grants come over to the new entity? And even even if that is true, was there any compliance issues by the prior entities that it's going to cause problems for the new entity? Now, some nonprofits own real estate, and of course, you get an asset with that merger or that acquisition, but you're also going to have liabilities and obligations that go along with that. So you need to plan for that. And some hidden things that you need to think about is environmental issues and safety issues. Are there any of those kinds of issues or potential for those kinds of issues that the new entity is going to have to deal with? And then, of course, the taxes that go along with owning property. Are all those property taxes in the past been paid? We have contract and license risks. Now, you're going to be assuming all kinds of contractual obligations from the entities for the new entity, but some contracts may be terminated and you're going to have to renegotiate them. But also, I want you to think about corporate licenses, permits, certificates, accreditations that you have now that may not transfer over to the new entity. Are you going to have to go through that process to get re-licensed, re-accredited? And then identifying any liability obligations from some sort of partnerships that the previous entities had. Okay, what happens with our tax exemption and our public charity status? Have we addressed the steps that we need to go through to make sure that we maintain our tax exempt status? Has any of the previous entities done anything that may jeopardize that? And what does the merger or the acquisition going to do to our public support ratio? Sometimes we don't think about that until the 990. We need to be thinking about that prior to the merger. And then finally, political types of risks and regulatory. Are we registered in all the states that we need to be registered in? Is a new entity going to be registered? Or if we're acquiring an organization, do we need to now register our organization in those additional states? And do we have good or bad relationships with regulatory agencies or key political actors, things that may need to be addressed prior to the merger? So there's a lot there. There's a lot of due diligence to do. This is not 10 minutes or 15 minutes is not a long time to go over this, but just wanted to give you a general overview so you understand the potential for all types of risk that you're getting into, that you can look into them, address them early, and you can avoid any problems or as many problems as possible prior to the merger or the acquisition. But I just want to stress one more time that communication is key among all of the stakeholders. That's our boards, our management team, our employees and independent contractors, our volunteers, our donors, and the general public. It's critical that they understand why we're doing this and what the new entity is going to look like and why this is such a positive move for the two organizations. Now, I hope this was helpful for you. And if you have any questions on this topic or you would like us to address other topics, please put that in the comments section below. Of course, we always appreciate your likes. And thank you for joining me today. Remember, creating a bigger impact starts with stopping the nonsense. If you're dealing with nonsense in your nonprofit organization, we'd love to help you cut through the noise.